Hey everybody, welcome to a special New Year's edition version of Cranky Gun Reviews. This is just a quick little update video on my 1022 build. So what I have done so far to this, I put a scope on here. I forget exactly what brand it is, but it was a rather inexpensive fixed 4 power 32 millimeter scope. That's going to stay on there for now until I get another one. It's not the best, but it's alright. I got my extra magazine, so I got 3 magazines for this particular one now. Total I have 6 of the 10 round magazines, and I have 2 of the 25 round magazines. You can see the sling here. That's one of my homemade slings. Again, I have a few of those for sale on eBay. I do special orders, I guess if people want them. I sell them for between about $20 and $25 a piece. This is a switchback design, so it's camo on one side and black on the other. And I use standard sling swivels. This is one of the adapters that I was talking about in the last video that I had with the slings. It is a CCOP USA brand and a CCOP bipod. This is, I believe, a 7 to 9 inch or about a 10 inch fully extended bipod. It's pretty neat. You got these little locks down here, and then you just pull the feet out to extend it, and you push the button in to retract them. And the little screws lock them in place. But pretty neat how it works. Again, it's just on the front sling swivel, which I put on. And I did have to move the barrel band forward a tiny bit because of the location of the sling swivel that I put on here. Hindsight, I could have moved it back a 1/4 of an inch and all that would have cleared fine. But what I'm going to be doing tonight is putting in this extended charging handle and an CARBO trigger spring kit. And what this actually is the little trigger return spring, which is up here in the back of the trigger. That guy in there, that's one of the springs that I'm replacing. The other one is also the sear spring. So when you take the trigger itself out, there's a sear, and I think the sear block in between those two pieces, there's a little spring. So that will reduce the trigger pull a little bit, and it's a much cheaper way of doing a trigger job on one of these. These spring kits are about $12.95, and CARBO is a veteran-run, veteran-supporting company. So I'm very happy to give them some business, and for the price that these are, again, about $12. I think shipping was $6. I bought 2 of these because I'll probably end up putting one in my takedown. So I'm going to go ahead and take this thing apart and get to work on those upgrades. I'll catch up with you in just a minute. So here I have the barrel in the action out of the stock itself. Nice thing about having the bipod, the stock remains just sitting up intact, so I can drop the action right back in. Now, one thing I've noticed with this particular one, all around the receiver in this stock is extremely tight on the gun itself. So I think it's a Ruger stock. I've actually seen Mini 14s with exactly the same stock. I'm just a sucker for these laminate stocks. I really like the way they look. So you can see the barrel actually beds pretty tight because it actually rubs on the stock. So this one I am going to keep the barrel band on. I've seen a couple of videos online where people put a couple of layers of electrical tape in here so that when they put the barrel band on, it really holds the barrel tight into the stock. So I may try that. No surprise to anyone on here, this pin and this pin is what you're going to take out to get the trigger out. These ones I've had out a few times, so I just use the same Allen wrenches that I used to take the gun apart to get these out. Sometimes they're a little bit tight, and it's not the easiest thing to do with one hand. I apologize for my low-tech video, but I don't have a great camera yet, and right now I don't have a computer to really edit these, so most of my videos are done in iPhoto. So that's why the quality of most of my stuff is not the greatest always, but alright, there's one pin and the other one, if I can get it out. There it goes. Alright, so pull these 2 pins out and the trigger group is out. So set the barrel and the action aside. And now the 2 springs that I'm going to be replacing, one of them is this little spring back here on the back of the trigger guard. The other one, once I take the trigger out, is actually between the trigger sear and the disconnector, I believe. I do have an extended takedown lever, which I'll show a picture of, but it hasn't come in yet. It accidentally got shipped to California instead of to my house. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart because I won't be able to do it with one hand. I'll come back to you in a minute. Alright, so now I have this big mess of parts over here. This is the trigger group, still has the safety button and the magazine release. This is your trigger and the sear stop or the safety mechanism, whatever this is. Basically this little tiny spring right here goes in between this piece, it goes in that hole, and it mates up in the same spot in the trigger. There's that hole. So basically what you need to do, the CARBO kit comes with this little tiny drift pin. So this guy here will help you assemble it. That's the spring that goes in between the trigger and the sear, and then you slide this pin in there to hold the sear in place until you can get the actual assembly pin in. And this spring replaces this guy on the plunger behind the trigger. It's a little bit shorter, it's a little bit lighter. So that gives you a lighter trigger pull, that gives you a lighter sear spring. So that's, I'm not sure what the BX trigger has in it, but this is what the CARBO spring trigger kit is. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and I'll come back in a minute. This is what the assembly looks like with the drift pin in it and the new spring. You can see the spring there in between whatever that sear piece is and the top part of the trigger. And you can see the little tiny drift pin holding everything together. You have to do that so you can slide the trigger back down in the housing without everything falling apart, because basically when you take this thing apart, when you take the trigger pin out, the spring goes flying and the sear piece comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this together. I'm also going to put the new spring for the plunger, which is right there on the plunger, and I'll put it all back together and I'll come back in a minute. Alright, so my trigger housing is all back together, and once I put it back in, I'll do the trigger just to see how it feels. I do not have a trigger pull gauge, so I'm not going to be able to really give you an indication. I'm sure there are other videos out there from CARBO and other people online, but the take up on this is much softer than it was before. So it's very, very, it's a little bit lighter. So they say it goes from about 5.5, 6 down to about 2.5. Those are the original parts in the bag there. So the next thing I'm going to do is change the charging handle on this from the one that's in there to the extended one I have. And I did have an issue with this thing. I took it out of the package, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but this lock ring that's on the end of it actually looks like a split lock washer. It's not actually a C-ring. And the first time I depressed this, that thing went flying off. So what I'm probably going to do is take the recoil spring and rod out of the 1022 and at least use the C-clip off of that for this one. But this is the extended charging handle I bought from a company called Tacbro on eBay. I guess I'll have to let you guys know how it works. This is a black anodized aluminum handle. Actually, I think it's steel, but it's black anodized. Looks pretty cool. I just wanted something that was a little bit easier to grip because this stock is pretty thick here, and it's actually a little bit difficult to grip the factory one. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Again, I'm not going to do a complete video on how to do this. It's not hard. You take out the buffer out the back of the receiver, you slide the bolt back, drop it down a tiny bit, and the handle, the bolt comes out, and then the handle just pulls out. So it's pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and change that, and I'll be back in a minute. Well, I just had something really weird happen. I took the factory charging handle out of my 1022, and it's missing the retaining ring. So basically everything just kind of fell apart on it. Now, I believe it's supposed to have a clip on it because there's a little notch in the end of the rod there that you can see. I think it's supposed to have like kind of a C-clip type thing on it. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I'll try this Tacbro one and see if it won't fall out. The last thing I want to have happen is this thing slamming back and forth and having that clip come back off. So I would hate to have that thing go into the action somewhere. I suppose I can always use the factory spring and the factory rod. Wouldn't hurt either way. I think I'm going to try it the way it is, although this is a much lighter spring. So maybe I should just put the factory spring back in. That's probably what I'll do, because I want to keep this thing functioning as well as I can. I don't know why people don't just sell this little handle. It should be the same diameter that goes in the original pin. Why wouldn't you just sell the handle? I don't know. I'll come back when I get all this together. Alright, so I got my upgrades done. You can see the extended charging handle. Obviously the spring kit, you're not going to be able to see the difference. Now, I'm not really very sold on this charging handle yet. The problem with an extended charging handle is if you pull on just the very end of it, what ends up happening is it cantilevers in the gun, and it's actually dragging a little bit. So even though it's longer than normal, you still have to put your finger like pretty much right at the receiver in order to get it to rack easily, and it still feels like it's dragging a little bit. It'll probably wear in a little bit. As the rounds fire back and forth, they're going to blow it straight back, so it'll wear in. I don't like buying parts that have to wear in. To me, that's kind of janky. So if I take this out to the range and it turns out this thing does not work well, it'll be coming back out. I think I spent 15 bucks on it, not a huge loss. And again, if I don't like it, I'll just take it back out. But I don't want to be wearing down the inside of the receiver because of this part having too tight tolerances. I did find out one thing. The factory charging handle does not have a retaining clip on it. Instead, what you have to do is basically rotate it on the pin, and there's a point where it just comes free and falls off. So that little groove that's in there is actually to make the end of this pin kind of an oval shape, and the factory pin only fits on one way. So that's a little tip I didn't know before. But here's kind of the finished product. Again, not really too much that you can see that's different other than that charging handle. I still haven't got my extended mag release yet, so I'm gonna put that on as soon as I get it in the mail. But for now, here it is. And this is a centerpoint 4x32 scope. I forgot. That's one I think I picked up at, I don't know, some Sportsman's Warehouse or something like that a couple of years ago. But that's what you have it for now. That's my 1022 build as it sits right now. Hopefully I want to get this out to the range soon. I was hoping to do it already, but unfortunately I forgot my range is closed until January 1st for hunting season. So starting tomorrow I can go back there on the weekends or during the week. I would go tomorrow, except home with my family, so I'm probably not going to be able to go. But that's it for this episode of Cranky Gun Reviews. This is the beginning of my 1022 upgrades and my moderate build. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great 2020. God bless America, and please support your 2A rights. Have a great night.